all the ducks are out. So I've been really enjoying the ducks.
Nice. Like Tony Soprano.
There's like a bunch of ducks
Like
out.
Tony
They all came
Soprano.
back.
Yeah.
Ducks.
I'll send you guys some duck pics.
Is part of the Irish mafia or the Canadian mafia.
I bet there's some like
perhaps.
unique ducks up there that you don't get elsewhere, right?
There's some weird ones that I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And like I like to think of myself as a duck guy.
Yeah.
So
Ducks are interesting.
Mhm.
When
Ducks?
you really actually start noticing them, there's a lot of different types of ducks.
yeah. There's one that's like all black but has like a band on its beak and like bright orange eyes. Looks like
that
it's
sounds
possessed.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another season of A24 on the Rocks. I'm your host today, Eric Kiska, welcoming you to the 2018 year of A24. As we start every episode, my drink of choice today is a Jack and Cherry Coke. And as always, I have three lovely co-hosts here with me, including my beautiful wife, Kelly. What are you drinking tonight, Kelly?
Hey, it's me, Kelly. Hi. I'm drinking... I wonder if you can hear this. What could it be? Oh, is that an entire gallon of mountain spring water in the gallon
on the
jug?
rocks?
Yeah, no rocks on this. It's already cold. But
Okay,
listen,
you can't drink that then.
life is short, and if you find a certain kind of water you prefer, why not just treat yourself every now and then? And treat yourself even further by not even pouring it into a glass, drink it straight from the gallon.
I mean,
So that's my drink of choice
can't
for
get
this episode.
much more pure.
This is not a paid
know?
advertisement.
No, we're not
Not
getting
for
paid
me.
by the Springwater people.
I would like to introduce Cole.
Hey guys, it's Cole Will and Whitlock Gibson. We are currently entering the never sleep time in Alaska where the sun never goes down and I don't know what time it is anymore. But today I'm drinking Writer's Tear. It is a Irish copper pot whiskey and thought it would be a little fitting for our video today.
Very relevant.
But up next we got my boy Kevin.
Well, good evening, world. It's Kevin Cake on Konachek. I am so happy to be back on this new season. I've missed you all greatly over the last couple of weeks. But no surprise to our listeners, I'm drinking whiskey. Nathan Lane told me that I had to drink whiskey in this film because he's got that quote where he says, all the greats drink whiskey. It's a fact. So I have to be
Nathan
drinking
Lane.
whiskey because Nathan Lane told me to. And it's a Michter's bottle. It's my favorite rye. It's the single barrel. It's just super delicious on the rocks. And I'm ready to talk some movies.
A24 on the Rocks.
All right. Well, today we are reviewing the 2018 A24 film, the first of this year, and that's The Vanishing of Sidney Hall, which was directed by Sean Christensen and written by Sean Christensen and Jason Dolan. As a star-studded cast of Logan Lerman, Elle Fanning, Michelle Monaghan, Nathan Lane, and Kyle Chandler, and it follows three separate timelines of a man named Sidney Hall. One part of the timeline shows Sidney Hall as an outcasted high schooler who's supposedly a very good writer. The other is Sidney after his first book has been published, where he's a highly successful writer and is nominated for a Pulitzer. And the last timeline is one where Sidney has vanished from public life and a supposed police officer, played by Kyle Chandler, is trying to track him down. Cole, what did you think about the choice to have three separate timelines in this film and the, kind of shifting of timelines? Different type of storytelling that we're used to.
Yeah, I mean, I always like when they do kind of a unique spin on storytelling. So I was intrigued. Again, it's one of those things that's extremely difficult to do, which is why not a lot of people do it. The director is the guy that wrote it, so I don't think he had very much, wasn't a director. That wasn't his skill set or his forte, right? So I felt like that was a very bold choice and a big thing to chew on. I don't oppose it. I welcome it for the most part, but just, you got to be wary of what you're biting off and if you're able to execute it.
For sure. Was anybody else confused with the three separate timelines, Gavin?
So there were points where I was confused and then points that I was not, which I think is kind of the overall criticism of their approach on it. I do appreciate the swing that they go for, right? When having 3 separate timelines, all played by one character, all seemingly interacting with each other. But the direction and the way that each of those story, like from a linear standpoint, didn't make sense. So like, it didn't make sense why the next one came after a certain point, and it was just kind of jumping around, and it was telling things that you maybe have already saw. And so I was confused, honestly, in certain parts of the film. And with a 2-hour runtime and they're trying to use that for all of it, it kind of dragged on a little bit in the confusion part. Just like, all right, I don't know. I feel like we could just tell all these stories, or told the first one and then into the second one and into the third one or something along those lines. So I guess I do see what they're going for, but overall it kind of fell a little flat for me.
For sure. So yeah, this film has quite the interesting backstory, as it was originally written in 2004 while our director, Sean Christensen, was in a band called Stella Star and was touring with the Killers. And it was eventually sold in 2008 to Ridley Scott's production company, Scott Free Productions, and Ridley and his brother Tony Scott were going to produce it, while Joe Russo, the director of Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War, he was going to direct it. And Jim Sturgis was set to play Sidney Hall. I do not know many of the other films he was in. But yeah, never got off the ground there. And so in 2011, Sean Christensen turned his talents elsewhere into making a short film called Curfew, which actually won him an Academy Award for Best Live Action Short. Now in Hollywood, if a film doesn't get made for 5 years, then the production company loses the rights to it per the WGA guidelines. So when Sean Christensen got the rights to his film back, he asked Super Crispy Entertainment to produce The Vanishing of Sidney Hall, and he decided to direct it himself and cast Logan Lerman as the title character. And it premiered at Sundance Film Festival in 2017, and then A24 bought the distribution rights to it and distributed it to a limited theatrical release on March 2nd, 2018, before it went to streaming. So pretty crazy how things turn out in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, when I was reading that too, I was like, wait, Joe Russo? Wait, what? Ridley Scott? And then that's cool. I didn't necessarily know about that 5-year. I mean, I think I knew, but that's really specific, and the fact that he was able to get it back. And also just speaks to why A24 turns into just this powerhouse, because it's going after people that seemingly deserve it, I guess. I don't know that way to describe it, but like going after a good story from where it came from, and then kind of trying to take a chance on it. So, and that was way back in 2018. So
I'd say our first film, or our first scene, may be one of the most jarring ones in any of the films we've reviewed to date, as it starts out with Sidney Hall reading a short story of, it describes a popular girl in his high school named Valoria in a very provocative way, before he says he masturbates to a fantasy of her and, quote, looked at the small puddle of cum I had generated and wondered, why did I just waste this on a tabletop, unquote. And we later find out that the name of the girl in the story is also the name of his mother. So, Oedipus complex there for sure.
I did not put that together.
I didn't until he just said Valoria right here at the start, and I went, wait, that's the mom's name.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, Kelly, did you think this first scene was effective in showing that this kid was a good writer?
Yeah, I mean, it effectively established him as he's going to be a controversial writer. He's going to be what all of them say of, like, you're just telling truth. And then you find out his second book is, like, a stream of consciousness Bible. So it makes me think David Foster Wallace in the previous movie we already watched having to do with his stories. Similar kind of, like, I would imagine he might be similar, writings in a similar style in high school as the way that we're established in this opening shot. I also think the way that this movie opens up, I was like, this feels immediately like the right kind of fit for A24. So to be kind of like controversial immediately like that, just go ahead and just throw it out there, get the expressions of everyone in the room. It really just like throws you right into, okay, this is not your mother's kind of movie. And also we're looking at it through this kind of like film grainy, like almost like peep show kind of portal. The way that they're showing this like cheerleader's body is how it opens up. And I'm like, okay, we're going to be artistic and we're going to push the line and the boundaries a little bit. So it made me interested to see the rest of the story.
Kevin, do you think that like this scene prove to you that he's a good writer? Like, I feel like a lot of this film, people are saying that Sidney's a good writer, but are we actually shown that he's a good writer?
No. Simply put, for me, no. For me, that beginning was a shock value. It was the lady I'm potentially writing about could be sitting in this room, and they obviously pan to the female class person at that point. And then they, of course, go to the next conversation when he's talking about getting expelled. So, no, I really don't think it kind of gave any real credence to that. And now that I'm thinking back to the rest of the film, there really isn't anything outside of like a couple of quotes and maybe starts on a page that gives us any real example of his writing at all.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that until you asked me that question. Like, I didn't even reflect on it at being even a concern, but you're right. It should be thought about, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. Cole, I mean, did you think that it was shown that he was a good writer, or are we just kind of told it?
I mean, we're definitely just told it. I don't know if there's like a good way to portray someone as being like a Pulitzer Prize winning writer in a movie without giving you the book for them to read, or if they have like the notoriety, like if it's like, oh, this guy's Stephen King, it's like, well, okay, he's well-known author, right? Like, he's very, very good. I would say like that scene for me definitely like let me know that what he writes is going to be very raw and very like unabashful, and just like it's not going to hold anything back, right? And that's part of who he is as an author. So I thought they did a good job kind of showing who he is as an author, in terms of like he's not afraid to go up and read like some almost like softcore pornography to his whole class and like not give a shit. So like, you don't know what this guy's gonna write. He's gonna, and they talk about how he's always like raw and it's just a stream of consciousness type thing. So I think they got that part across. But as for being like the greatest writer of all time, I don't know if you ever really can express that through film without it being
too.
Yeah, and without it being like a historical figure that everyone's just like, oh, it's Shakespeare. Yeah, he's got to be the best, right? This is just a made up character. So I thought they did a good job setting the tone and the frame, and they did like to beat it to death about how just so good he is. Just like, you don't understand. And it's like, yeah, I don't. I get it, but they're like, no, but for real, like, greatest writer of all time. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, we could tone that down a bit, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel like this film portrays kind of the mythos of the writer, like the depressed genius who's also an alcoholic. And I just feel like that's a really outdated trope. Can we even think of like the last person that's really like lived that like in actual society, like in real life?
Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, that
Aaron
was like,
Rodgers.
what, 50 years ago? Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, honestly, that's right. I mean, 50 years ago, yeah, so it's the first person that comes to my mind when it comes to this
Jack
style.
Kerouac, right. He's long gone. A lot of these people are long gone. And
well, like also who was like, I think maybe it's like a societal shift. Just authors don't have the same celebrity type thing, at least to me. I equate it more towards maybe like musicians or celebrities, like actors and actresses, just because of the media, how it's shifted. So you see a lot of those people.
Lack of print, maybe. Just the shift away from book printing in general.
I was like talking to Kelly, like, what are the biggest like books of the last 25 years? I would say Harry Potter, 50 Shades of Grey, and Twilight. all young adult kids books, like I can't think of the last like big adult book. Maybe like The Lovely Bones would be one, but like actual fiction book that just had so much notoriety.
Crawfish is a crawdad.
Yeah, I know where the crawdad sings.
Yeah, that one. They only got turned into a film. There's a couple of books that got turned into films recently. I think that might be. But
like, not anything where I feel like Sidney, he was kind of portraying like a J.D. Salinger kind of guy, like a guy that wrote The Catcher in the Rye, like a book that turned all of society on its head, and everybody was like, "Oh my God," and
at least that's what they were going for. Whether they portrayed it correctly or not is, I guess, us for debate. But I think that's absolutely what they were trying to say.
For sure.
Hell, I
Well,
feel like now the biggest books are always like the self-help books, like the guy that wrote the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Like that one, I
Yeah.
feel like that blew up.
Yeah,
But-
like ones you give to
What
your
was the
coworkers.
secret? The secret, right? Was that the live life and pray or
Yeah.
whatever the
Yeah.
whole effing thing is?
Yeah.
I just think that we're not in book world so much. Like, I
No.
know that there's book people out there, like how we're doing an A24 podcast. And if they're listening to this, they're like, oh, how do you guys not know? Boom, boom, boom. They can name them all.
Yeah.
But I'm just not in that circle.
Well, and yeah, that may be the place where we are in
That's a good
society.
point. Yeah.
Because like
But I feel
back,
like it's
in the 50s and 60s, everybody's like, you have to read this book. Like it was a
Yeah.
must-have like pop culture phenomenon. And like I said, the last thing that would be Harry Potter. That's the last time I think everybody like was like, you have to read this book, or else people will feel left out.
Right, like new release days. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when like the Harry Potter books 6 and 7, people were buying them and reading them all in one day. Like that fervor is gone.
For the ladies of like, I don't know, us millennial ladies, everybody's on A Court of Thorn and Roses right
Yeah.
now. That's going around so far that it's outside of even the book circles. And that's
Yeah.
book
So
FOMO is
that's a good
spreading
example
again.
then. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
All my sisters are reading it. So.
Yep.
All right, so there you go. Now we have another.
All my books that I'm consuming these days are graphic novels and comic books,
Oh, yeah.
like
Let's
long
go.
things like
yeah,
that.
just
so 'cause it's
read
really
Old Man
easily
Logan.
accessible.
So good. So good.
Nice. I'm working through the boys right now. I'm going through that
nice.
whole collection.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Vanishing of Sidney Hall.
I digress.
Well, okay, talking about the mythos of the writer and everything, Kelly, did you think Sidney was a likable character, and was he even supposed to be a likable character also?
Weirdly, I think he kind of was likable. I don't know if it's just because there's like that meme now of like, I have trusting features, so everyone tells me all their secrets. It's probably because the actor is a likable looking person. So then the way that he behaves, I find myself kind of supporting his actions, and he just loves like one person with his whole heart. And how can you not try to support that and just think that he's trying his best? Oh, and he has a panic disorder. Oh no, and his parents are awful to him as well. So you feel lots of sympathy for him. And like, I don't know, like, of course he does some things that aren't so good, but I really just think he's trying his best with what was given to him. So I found myself rooting for him, and I think he was a likable character to follow.
Okay. Kevin, do you agree? Or
I agree. And I think there was even, that key plot point where he only agrees to help his bully jock friend guy acquaintance
Brad
because
Newport.
Brad Newport.
Brett.
If Brad agrees to stop bullying another kid. So I feel like there's a little bit there where they're, making the audience feel sympathetic for him. Like he's, looking out for the little person, whether or not that clearly doesn't seem to be the case later in his life. And there was also that really subtle storyline of where you could tell his teacher was going to be his first agent, and then clearly he didn't stick around with him anymore because now Nathan Lane is his big agent. So, I mean, there's subtle things that make you like him, but then you're also clearly supposed to despise him for cheating, for brushing off his fans, for abandoning his original whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a balance, but it felt a little forced a little bit. Like they were like, this is what you're supposed to feel, as opposed to letting that character develop organically. And it also was hard when you had 3 different timelines all converging with the character acting different ways. So that's really hard to build any sort of concrete emotion towards somebody when you're constantly flipping between him as 18 to him as a successful person and him as a drifter. Like those are not comparable characters at all. And he's trying to juggle all of those performances. And that's why they all felt a little inauthentic to me.
Yeah.
Instead of one of them feeling really genuine.
Yeah. I feel like he feels like a stereotype every single part of his like plot, his plot point. And early on, he's the outcasted high school kid. He looks past the jock character, like, oh, this guy can't be anything more than a bunch of muscles. And then obviously, like the jock character turns out to be much more. And then also, like, after he sold his book, he like didn't care at first that he was nominated for a Pulitzer, and then he was very sad and angry that he lost the Pulitzer. And then in the end, or the last timeline, he's just this extremely sad and depressed writer, way, gone down the rocker, and nothing can ever bring him back. And it just felt like they created a lot of stereotypes for this character in this movie, and I wouldn't say I disliked him. It's hard to sympathize with a character when they live into a trope or a stereotype so much. So that would be my idea on that. But Kelly, were you going to say something? Or?
Yeah, I agree with what you say about the stereotypes that he portrays, and I think that that's the weakness for a lot of the characters in this movie, is that I do think that we fall into quite a few stereotypes, and I wish that when there is depth, it's kind of like not something that's like completely something you haven't seen before. There's a lack of novelty in what these characters kind of go through. But I do think that the way that this is edited, I think that the strength of this movie is the way that it's edited with those different timelines coming up, because that's what the way that it's organized and the way they don't reveal any of those secrets till the very last bits of the movie, I thought was really powerful, because it leads me each time going, okay, well, I understand who he is in high school. How does he get to this point? How does he get to that point? And as you keep watching, they're going to start to give you those answers. So if it was completely just a chronological story, it wouldn't be nearly as strong as the way that it was edited and put together in the end. And that's what makes those... I have forgiveness for having those kind of stereotypical characters, because you can only shove so much in, and you kind of need to be able to maybe rely on that a little bit in order to tell the story in a more interesting way that climaxes more completely at the end.
For sure. Kevin, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of comment on the idea of what this movie is as a whole, whether it being a character study itself. Is that the intent of our writer-director, to truly study this character of Sidney Hall, or is it more about his journey and his story? And I guess I'm left that open-ended. A question for you guys. If it is truly a character study, I think that my criticisms are still where they stand for me, that they just didn't give me enough to make that feel like it was a flushed-out character. But if it wasn't, and it was intended for something other purposes, or maybe we're not intended, maybe we're not supposed to even just figure out what this movie was supposed to be, and it was just enjoy it for what it was. I don't know. Leave it to you guys.
For sure. And speaking of stereotypes, we get a big stereotype in here for the character of Melody, played by Elle Fanning, and that's the manic pixie dream girl stereotype trope. And for those that don't know what manic pixie dream girls are, they're kind of these quirky female characters in a lot of films that seem to be like the only ones to understand our main character. They're kind of a trope now because they seem to usually only be a plot device to give like emotional support to our leading male character, and also they're kind of only there to teach them lessons on life. Think of Summer in 500 Days of Summer. That's probably like, your ultimate.
First one that comes to my mind is
character. Yeah.
Ramona Flowers.
Yeah, Ramona Flowers is another.
Come on.
Yep. Yeah.
That was my first thought immediately.
At least they had fun with, that whole,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
At least that was fun.
They
but
did a good
like,
version of it.
this was trying to be very serious and still did the trope. But Cole, what did you think about Elle Fanning and Melody as our manic pixie dream girl in here?
I honestly, I did not like her. I thought I will say the way they introduced her with like the letter, cute, neat.
Not proper postage on their docket, half a letter grade.
That's illegal.
There we go.
She didn't need to send it through the post. She just walked it across the street.
Which is illegal. You have to pay for postage. I don't care if you live across the street.
Yeah. That's awesome. But no, like the first time they introduce, like you physically see her or whatever, when he like confronts her, she just runs away. And you're just like, oh, okay, is this going to be like what do we happen? And then, I don't know, it's just like every interaction they had, I kind of hated just the way that it was going. And then when they went into like the future with her as like his wife, I like, something that bothered me about this film is they don't divulge what I feel like are important beats to this guy's life. Like they do show a lot of important like trauma, but it's like, why is she leaving him? And it's like, oh, it's because you're sad all the time. Like, I mean, I guess, but I don't know. Her as an adult, I really did not like, but her as like the kid was fine. I just didn't like their interactions, and I didn't feel like they did a good job of me being like, oh, he really loves her. That's his muse. Like, they're going to be together forever. The biggest thing that was like heart-wrenching was him keeping the picture and giving it to her, basically.
Picture of the house in New Mexico.
The picture of the house in Mexico or whatever, or in the desert, and he finally gives it to her after she's leaving him, and he's like, "Don't go, I bought you this house." It's just like, I don't know, I feel like that like gift is kind of also like a weird slap in the face of like this 30-year-old dream of them just like showing up to the house and like spending one last night or magical moment, and he's like, I bought it so every night can be special, and it's like, well, if every night's special, then no night's special. I don't know, but that's my soapbox about Elle Fanning.
Yeah. Kelly, what did you think of Melody, played by Elle Fanning? And she's been to several A24 films now. She is a good actress, I will say that.
She's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that she gave us a great performance. I liked their relationship, and I think that a lot of it that I liked about it is the stuff that I wrote in my head that happens in between the parts that we see, which could be a positive and a negative, depending on how you're watching the movie. I agree with Cole that adult her, I'd need a little bit more. Like, I kind of get what's going on with him. I think it was so sad when he buys the house, because you can tell how disconnected they've gotten, where he's like, here's my my Hail Mary is money. You know, I got rich, so I can just throw money at you and we'll be okay, right? And obviously that shows how far they've gotten. So there was no emotional match there that was long lasting. And she does so fall into that stereotype, because who is she outside of him? We don't really get a clue of that. She just kind of exists as a plot device for him, to the point where that's their whole reason that Act 3 version of him exists the way that he does, is because of the passing of her. I wish that she was more of a character just on her own. I think that was probably a big dig to the movie. The more we're talking about it, the less I'm kind of thinking I might have enjoyed this movie, now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah. This usually goes the opposite way.
I don't want to say that I really dislike this movie. Like, it's probably coming off that way because, I gotta, round out these questions here. But I actually think they did a good job of interspersing these timelines. And once we actually were set, like, we get the initial plot twists and we're kind of going off, I'm like, oh, this actually is kind of interesting. It was well shot. But then we have all these stereotypes of characters, and that turned me off a bit from truly liking the movie.
For my 2 cents on Elle Fanning, same thing without extending too much. Like, the performance was fantastic, but like, even as something as simple as the pregnancy storyline, I completely eye rolled at that line. Like, oh, I'm pregnant. Like, of course you're pregnant. Like, that's,
I can't go to the house in the desert anymore.
It was just, I'm not free to make my own choices. And like, the whole idea that he only is interested in her because she's some mystery lady that writes really fancy on a paper doesn't make her any more interesting, and it really just serves for his character development. It's all like Kelly said. It's just all. I mean, granted, Sidney Hall is truly in the title of the film. Like, I get it, but not when you make her such, like Kelly said it perfectly. Like, she's the reason that Act 3 exists, but we still are made to feel like she's a footnote, which is not where you want to write your characters.
One-dimensional character.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in a film that seemingly is all about the characters, or characters, that just, I wanted it to be a lot better. And I had the same feeling, Eric. I was kind of like going like, oh, it's starting to get that point where I'm enjoying it, and then it just never really went anywhere, and then it was over.
Weirdly, as I'm thinking about it, and I'm someone who doesn't always love narration throughout a movie, she almost feels like we only see her from his point of view. So we never see her on a scene on her own, but it also feels like we're looking at her through his lens, through his eyes, how he sees her. And maybe that explains why she is as flat as we see her. And I think if we had some narration where he kind of explains that, maybe we could feel that way a little bit more and be like, oh, like, she's completely seen through the male gaze, but that's because that's the gaze that we're told to be seeing it through.
Speaking of kind of one-dimensional female characters, Cole, what is going on with the mom and dad in this film? So it's like they took the trope of like we would normally have like an abusive dad trope and the mom is like catatonic, just like completely not paying attention to anything going on in the house and is just like off in the corner cleaning, except now we have it flipped where the mom is the one kind of being abusive, smoking cigarettes, and the dad is like catatonic off in the corner watching TV. So, I mean, what did you think of these characters? Because they are, the mom at least is a big part in why Sidney ended up being the way he was.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Like, so there's several things that they drop as like hints of like the mom and dad's relationship. The dad is on disability. He mentions him being on disability. You have no idea what it is. I couldn't tell you what he has because at one point he's like, he tackles the mom to the ground and like holds her. So it doesn't seem to be like a physical disability, but then also like there's other times where he's talking to him and he seems like he's just like dead to the world, but then other times seems not. So I don't get it. And then also at the end or towards the end where Elle Fanning says to our main character, to Logan, that your mom just walked out on your dad, by the way. I don't know if you know that. And it's like, isn't that a good thing? Because his mom was a terrible person. I don't know why. She just was like always drunk or smoking cigarettes and mean. And I don't know. I was very confused by that whole relationship. None of it made sense because it was very conflicting. And like his mom seemed disinterested for the most part until the end where they're just like, we got to explain why he's got a brain injury. Quick, have her push him into a coffee table. Yeah. And it's just like she's never been violent up to that point at all. And now all of a sudden she's getting real violent because he's leaving. And it's just like.
And she thinks he's a pervert.
Well, yeah, and then you throw the pervert part in with the tape and stuff. It's like, okay, I kind of get why she's so pissed off. But did he not try and explain anything? Did he just shut down? Did he just accept it? Like, also that tape was not like super burnt. I feel like you probably could still give it to the cops and at least they could pull a single frame of this pedophile. And that one guy, I don't know. It's like, they definitely took some creative liberties in terms of the story progression, which I thought was like, the idea was kind of neat, but I just felt like it was poorly executed, perhaps.
It might be better as a book, I think. That's like something I've heard from other people. Like I listened to a couple other podcasts on this today. Everybody kind of said like, this could be good as a book. It's an interesting thought of a story, but we just need these characters to be a lot more fleshed out. And I definitely agree with that. Yeah. So, and I mean, also, I think this would have been better in a different time period, but I will get to that shortly here. I want to get into our initial plot twists, and I want to start out with the oldest Sidney, and that is Hobo Sidney. So earlier in the film, we came to realize that Sidney may have been burning his own books and has vanished from public life. And then we come to realize Sidney is the guy burning his own books, and the author he lost his Pulitzer Prize to, Francis Bishop, played by Kyle Chandler. He's been impersonating a cop to track him down. So, Kevin, what did you think of this reveal?
I actually enjoyed that part of the film. Yeah. I thought that there was...
Not that good at writing autobiographies. I was like, oh, yeah!
That was my favorite line of the movie.
Yeah. and it paused for a second until it caught it. I was like, oh my God, of course. And then, because up until that point, they even did the really cool shot when he was talking to the gnome pottery man where they put the badge underneath the magnifying glass and zoomed in on it. And I didn't think anything of it. I even wrote down, I was like, oh, badge shot, pretty, or something along those lines. Just like thinking about from a cinematic standpoint, like that was pretty cool. And then it comes to be on that was super obviously intentional for us to try to be like, you didn't even notice when you had a close-up look of it all the way up until the end, which was pretty sweet. I did enjoy that aspect. I don't really know what happened at the end as far as like the way he rejected him and then all of a sudden was in the hospital, whether that was a suicide attempt or an overdose or
then
whatever
he said,
the hell.
call him, like I want to talk to him.
Yeah, and it just felt like a complete abrupt 180. Maybe he just realized he was dying and this was only his opportunity. I don't know. But for the most part, I thought that twist and reveal was well done. And I really think that Kyle Chandler's performance in this film, as subtle as it was probably one of the better ones, because it just, he had a goal. He wanted to get it accomplished, and he didn't have to get too bombastic about it to show why it was important to him. And his character was developed enough with his background with the Pulitzer Prize and his relation with our character that it made sense.
Yeah. Well, Cole, do you buy into the fact, so this is our quality control section of our review. Do you buy into the fact that Sidney could be a train-hopping, bean-eating hobo in modern-day America with a dog?
No, definitely not. There's absolutely no way.
There's no way you could vanish from public life like this.
No, and like the railroads, like you could probably train hop a couple times, but like railroads, like those companies, they have their own security police force. Like you don't fuck with the railroads. Like I've worked on like military installations and stuff, and even they can't tell the railroad what to do. If we're working within their easement, we got to get them involved. And I've watched some YouTube videos of people train hopping, and they almost always get caught. Like the fact that he had a dog and was doing this for years and like standing on top of the cart smoking a cigarette in a scenic view. It's like that doesn't happen in modern day like America anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I little
and he said he had no money, but like so I don't know how he was living. Okay. Like I guess hobos do live, but like.
He had no money, but he had like prescription bifold sunglasses on.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone else noticed that. Maybe he didn't need them,
and he had like 1920s hobo clothes on, and it's just like
none of it makes sense.
And you would think that like if he was actually on the run, like he was burning books or whatever, and was actually wanted by the police.
And let's talk about that beard too. Because that was awful. The costuming on that beard was terrible. I'm like, come on. You can't. It's supposed to be like some hobo grizzled beard, and it's like all combed out.
Yeah.
It's just like, and perfectly manicured around the mustache. Like, you're fail.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, there are homeless people, but they don't live like how he's living, like they're usually like they're living in Skid Row in LA.
Yeah, they got like a set place. They're not constantly traveling.
They're not constantly moving.
Dog.
Like that's not a lifestyle that it really happens anymore. Which goes to my kind of theory that this might have been better in a different time period too. That might have been more interesting. The next twist we get is that Sidney and Melody did get married, but grew estranged because he's been too self-obsessed. And he was cheating on her. And also that this book was extremely famous. The book he wrote, Suburban Tragedy, which is based on Brett Newport. It was extremely famous and controversial, but it also led to fans of the book killing themselves, like the main character did in the book. So we also come to see Sidney has been hallucinating due to possible brain damage. Kelly, what did you feel about this twist of the movie?
I like that the twist of it, I thought it was gonna, when it came to what they dug up outside in the lunchbox, I thought it was going to be like drugs or a gun or something like that. The last thing I expected was a videotape. I also didn't
murder weapon is what I thought for sure.
Yeah, I also did not expect that on Sidney's like final confession of it. I thought he was just going to say, "I feel really guilty that I made a bunch of money off of somebody who was a friend of mine in a weird way. Like I took advantage of his story and he became famous off of it." But no, instead he blames himself for the reason why Brett died. And I thought that was an interesting twist. I thought it was just guilt-ridden the whole time, but it's actually a little more layered than that. I like how they revealed that. I like that it was a videotape in there. And I thought that Brett's performance, when they look back at the two of them having their like diner talk, and he's bruised from his dad beating him up and having all the rage about what that secret is, and he's finally going to show it. I told Eric this, but it really felt like a scene from Euphoria where those characters are they're in high school and they're going through really adult problems and trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do about it and make some decisions that are going to alter their life forever. And in this case, what Brett's whole plan was instead went an opposite way, and he ended that story in a different way. So I thought that those kind of twists, those were like the strongest points of the movie for me. This whole videotape thing, I did not see that coming at all, and I thought that that was really powerful. Was that your question? I ranted so long, I forgot.
I was actually going to ask just about Sidney and Melody, but yeah, you went into the next twist that I was going to ask, but that's okay. But yeah, I mean, Kevin, what did you think? That big reveal about how it was just a videotape, and apparently, it was showing Brett's dad raping a child, and then we figure out that Sidney's mom, Valoria, watched the tape before she threw it in the fire in front of Sidney, and then Brett killed himself shortly thereafter. What did you think about this?
Not just a child, but his own daughter.
Oh no! Well, no. He says he's also now currently raping his daughter.
Got it.
Yeah. Then Brett is just like, I think he's raping Darcy. So
got it.
Yeah. Either way, so really heavy. Like, holy wow! Like, I think the biggest thing that at the end of this film, and I know we're not talking about the end yet, but like this culminates to that point, is there's just so much trauma, and it's a trauma dump. It's just like everything at once without anything really redeeming. Like that scene with the mom, I was just shakingly angry. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, so that was obviously what they were going for from that perspective. Like they really wanted the viewer to physically be like, stop it, don't throw that in the fire. Like, what are you doing? You're going to destroy everything. And they did a good job from that perspective. But for the most part, I was just like, oh, it's so like, yeah, we can touch on this subject matter without being just so heavy-handed about it. And I don't know, it just felt a little bit over to the top, and it didn't balance itself out with even just a little bit of some redeeming niceness. I mean, if you combine that scene then with the Melody scene and then with him losing, and it all just, I don't know, it muddled the emotions because there was just so much that it was trying to get me to feel at the exact same time. And sometimes in movie, that's fantastic. Like I think about when we watched Good Time, and there was so much in Good Time that I had to take in a small amount of time, but it felt like I could process it, and it felt totally different than this did, even though it was trying to maybe do something similar in that sense.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? I
think so. And Cole, what did you think about this big reveal too? I think we all need to touch on it since it's a pretty big part of the film.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good MacGuffin, as you said.
Yeah,
I think it was a good build up. Definitely hit the climax, and I thought it was like
not as good as a severed head in a box, but almost there.
Almost there. But if a little kid buried a severed head in a box for about 15 years, it'd just be it would just be a skull at that point. So, but no, I thought I liked it. I hated the mom's involvement. I felt like it almost felt shoehorned in, and her like sitting next to the fireplace. I was like, she's gonna throw that in the fireplace, and then she did, and obviously you are like, oh, okay, so now this is gonna have the trickle down effect or domino effect type thing of just but I did like the reveal. I liked just like kind of those plot points. I just started watching Euphoria, so when I was watching this, I was like, this is like a shittier version of Euphoria.
They do a good job of that in Euphoria, for sure.
Yeah, they do a very good job. So, I felt like...
Is Euphoria a TV show or a movie?
It's an A24 TV show on Max.
That makes sense.
Maybe one day we will talk about it.
Yeah, it's
maybe. Of course we are. Yeah. In 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not a movie, so it's not on our timeline of things to watch. But we could talk about it in a discussion.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Whenever we
look for it here.
Yeah. Okay.
But
cool.
But yeah, so I definitely saw those parallels, and I liked the bringing that down, and I liked how serious it got. And that scene at the diner is very, very good. And I thought that like this is what I've been waiting for like 45 or no, it's been like an hour and a half at this point. It's like, I really wish this was like 30 minutes into the film, and the rest is just kind of the fallout and all that stuff, and like how it kind of messes him up throughout all these timelines. But I also get why it was so late, but I felt like it should have been sooner.
And yeah, like also, so the mom pushes his head into the corner of the dresser. He was bleeding from his head. And so like these hallucinations he's been having throughout this whole movie might be from that. See, I thought he was schizophrenic, which would have added even more into like, okay, this guy could not process like knowing how to train hop in modern day America and like live. Schizophrenic homeless people like are need a lot of help to be able to have the awareness to do what Sidney is doing. Like they would need to be on medication at the very least. They wouldn't also be able to just sit in a diner and have a full conversation with somebody without there being some telltale signs that they're schizophrenic. So I'm guessing so. Like this brain damage he had caused him to hallucinate. I'm not sure about that. And then also we figure out that Sidney's wife, Melody, died from an asthma attack, which also threw me off a lot too. Like, holy shit. So there's this confrontation at dinner with Sidney's mistress, Alexandra, played by Margaret Qualley. And after realizing Sidney was cheating on her yet again, and he was like hallucinating during this whole thing, Sidney and Melody get in a fight, and they get trapped in the elevator in Sidney's apartment building, which seemed like one of those like horrible old style New York apartment buildings that I don't know why people live in those because it just seems horrible. But anyway, the limited air in the elevator apparently led to Melody having an asthma attack and dying. And this really threw me off because like I have asthma. I've never had an asthma attack where I died within or I felt like I was going to die.
Yeah.
Like within like a couple hours. Like there's an initial like kind of panic, like I can't breathe right now, but then you sort yourself out. But then I did look it up, and apparently people do just die from asthma attacks. I felt like it would be something where it takes days to die from it, and like you have to have like pneumonia or something. But no, she like it's an actual thing. It very like I've never seen that in film or like heard about it. I had to actually look it up after. But I mean, Kelly, what did you think about the choice to kill Melody with an asthma attack here?
New fear unlocked. Not for me, but for my asthmatic lover. I did not like that at all. I thought it was super upsetting, and I'm just like, ugh, this is just gonna... you just know that what's gonna happen as soon as she's just like... she's just gonna lay on the floor, and you're like, well, you don't see her anymore, so I have an idea of what's gonna happen here, and then you just have to wait for it to finish. And that sucked. That was a bummer. I didn't like the lack of clarity on how long they were in there. What if they were in there for a day? I'd be like, oh, okay. And if they acknowledged that, I'd be like, I could see this. But without that being clear, I was like, it only took 10 minutes? Or was it half an hour? Or I have no idea. Or if they showed that it was like super hot or something. Like I know she was sweating, but like what if they were both like claustrophobic as heck? And I know that she was, but... So it's like panic on top of asthma. It just seems like an awful way to leave this life, and I felt awful for it. So
I really didn't like that they chose to have Sidney staring off into the wall as she was dying on the floor next to him, and had the scene where she had to grab his ankle for him to like come back into reality. I was like, what? The person your fucking love of your life is dying next to you, and you're more worried about staring off and feeling woe is me. And again, it was back to this idea like you wanted to focus back on Sidney, even though it was way more fucking important to concentrate on the fact that she was dying on the ground. So yeah, I don't know. It just fed into my complaints.
He was cheating on her, or he had cheated on her before, and even though they were separated, he was like cheating on her again, kind of like because they were still married. And she very obviously at first did not want him anywhere near her, like, touching him, and she was so angry she couldn't even talk to him. And then I kind of get like, oh, like, hey, I'm, having a horrible time right now. Please come back to me. But yeah, I don't know. It just like, what dying from an asthma attack, we have this one-dimensional character and we give them this really horrible death, and it just seems like really shitty to do that to a character you did not fully write out. So yeah, Cole.
Yeah, that scene, I had the same thought as you. I quickly Googled afterwards, can you die from asthma? And like, if so, how quickly? So apparently you can. I guess we have no idea what the timeline was, but one thing I did not like about that scene, besides her dying and kind of like a cop out and whatnot, and just adding more trauma to our traumatized boy, is where he's staring at the wall and he's just like mumbling to himself like, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me and all that stuff, which is very sweet. But this is also after you said you weren't cheating, or or sleeping with someone while they were broken up, she directly asked you about it, told you to tell her the truth, and like, this is your like one free card, like, tell me the truth and everything, like we can work through this. He lies, gets called out on that lie, and then she in her like last waking moments, I guess, gives him some form of forgiveness, which I think in that situation she probably would rather just be with like the person she loved. But I don't know, I felt like it was just kind of like I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, how long have they been down there? That was a loading elevator, which those ones, they're pretty like open, so I feel like there's definitely ways to get out of that situation, but whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions to be asked, like, after seeing that, like, and you have to Google them, which probably isn't a good thing for the film.
Well, just have her die in a car crash and let's move on.
Yeah. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all we need.
Squealing tires, right?
Yeah.
Plus, you would never see her, like, it's like one of the first things she does as a character when he like meets her is she just grabs her inhaler and huffs it, and you're just like, okay, that's gonna be a thing.
Yeah.
So of course.
Or is it part of the manic pixie dream girl, trope? It's just like, oh, we got to make her a little quirkier.
That's what I
has
thought.
Asthma.
Yeah. Between that and she likes Bob Dylan, which you can't be a real girl if you like Bob Dylan.
Oh yeah, that was also weird. Yeah, like, are you a real girl after she says she likes Bob Dylan and horror movies? It's like, have you been on the A24 film group on Facebook? Like, there's a lot of girls on there that like both those things.
Girls only like My Little Pony and Easy Bake Ovens.
Yeah,
exactly.
They have to like Taylor Swift, I guess.
And T Swift.
T Swift.
Yeah. Well, all right, and so yeah, we had that clipping of the house in New Mexico, which apparently Sidney bought, and one of the last scenes here, or pretty much the last scene, he actually goes to that house, sets down all these things that were kind of mementos for Melody, and the end is he's dying. I think it's from a failing liver. I don't think he OD'd or tried to kill himself, but he was in the hospital, asked for Francis Bishop to come, and like he kind of has almost a deathbed confession before he dies, and the ending is kind of, I would say it's kind of him riding off into the sunset with Melody in the afterlife. It's like they finally get to that place in New Mexico where they can be happy forever and after. But Kevin, should he burn in hell for sticking his dirty dick in any hole he could find?
Yes.
Does he deserve the happy ending? Is what
all right.
Yeah.
Does he deserve? I want to say yes. I guess.
Yeah.
It's conflicted because I feel like a lot of this film is supposed to be, like Cole said, we're told a whole lot of how great of an author, how impactful he is, but we don't really see it. So it's hard for us to even answer. Like, I didn't even consider asking myself that question because it didn't have any emotional like pull on me. I was like, okay, it's over. So it's really like, we talk about this all the time, the whole blood from the stone thing, like really pulling and squeezing something and trying to make it more than it really is. So no, I guess he really didn't technically deserve the happy ending of being memorialized by a great author. He was kind of a prick, but at the same time, his book was really good, so I guess that means he should be. Like, is that the story? Is that the lesson? I'm not sure.
If you have great talent, then you're allowed to be a bastard. So.
Right, then you can cheat on as many people as you want and, throw them all into the bus and run off into the world.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he did have traumatic things happen to him. I won't.
Yeah,
his
brain, exactly. And his brain is all messed up from his mom. And, and his dad's a vegetable and weird. I think he was a football injury. I'm going to blame that.
That's what I was thinking too, because it seems they were a football player and cheerleader who had a kid in high school.
Yep. He was the tight end. Right. Cole,
Nice
what did you think of this ending?
The ending again felt like a kind of a cop-out where it's just like, he's had this traumatic brain injury, he's an alcoholic, and as soon as the author that wants to write a book about him finds him, he's gonna die. I really want to know what happened with the judge after the tape got burned. Did he just give up on that whole ideal of like trying to do anything?
Wrote a book on it, I guess. It's like, Yeah,
Like,
he exposed him sort of through the book, but then nobody actually knew. The general public didn't know what the book was actually about, even though I feel like in this day and age you could Google, oh yeah, this guy in the same hometown that this guy grew up in, there was a kid who killed himself and his dad was a big judge.
Right.
well,
So yeah.
I mean, there's also like, hey, I don't know, if you know that the judge is a pedophile and all that stuff, you could take that to the, I don't know, you could do something. I feel like he should have just done something instead of just like the tape got burned. He's like, dang it. Better, we'll move on to the next trauma now. It's just like, I don't know, that bothered me throughout the film, and just some of the major talking or like story points that I felt like just got missed. But I mean, the ending was fine. I thought I thought him giving that guy just a collection of all of his random writings was probably the best part about it. Because it was like, okay, well, that's pretty cool. That's neat. Neato.
All right, Kelly, last thoughts before reviews? Thoughts on the ending?
It did seem like he did something intentional, because it's like he found someone to take care of his dog. It's known, and the dog's named after what would have been his kid. And he sets up everything in the house and takes a shower and grooms himself. So it seems like he knows, like, this is the end. And I don't like that all that just kind of happens off screen. And he like sets up the home like for Melody to come home to, in a way. And it's like, why show that, but then not explain why then he just dies in the hospital. And so it seems like he timed it out, but it's just like, how, why? It just felt like they were kind of rushing to the ending by the time they revealed some of their cards. And then we have the rest of them that are revealed there on the hospital bed. And I wish that instead of it ending with like, now we're our high school selves again and we walk off into the light, I wish that he lived and something else happened instead, and he like came around and maybe like did some redemption for what's happened before. I think it would tell a better story and have us walk away with more meaning from it, if he could kind of redirect his life afterwards. Because I think a interesting part of it is the fact that there's like this like cult of people that are going around with his books as like reasons to do things, and then there's also this cult of people where his books are the reasons that they saved themselves. And I think that that's a more interesting,
or killed themselves too.
Yeah, but for in the fact of Francis,
yep, his son.
His son, that book kind of like saved his life. So it's just like any kind of art you put out into the world, like it's not yours anymore afterwards, and it's up to the people that digest it to then take it in and do what they're going to do with it. And I think that that's a more interesting story to tell. And I think that the story of this whole movie could have maybe gone a little quicker. We could have gotten to that, and we could have seen a different version of that ending instead of the one that we got. I found it to be a bit disappointing.
Should have ended like there should have been two people in Michigan, one guy in Alaska, one guy in Wisconsin, podcasting about the book, giving their review. And then that showed, like, once you put a book out into the world, it's not yours anymore.
I think it's a really good point, though, because I think, Kelly, right, when you talk about the opening of the film with him burning the books, I mean, it's the same theme, right? Once it's out in the world, you'd have no longer have control over it. So maybe that's the overarching theme that they're trying to go for, but like we've said, it just didn't really deliver that as fully as we would have liked.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I agree that if he lived and redirected his life, it would have been a good, like, not moral, but a good thing for the end of the film, saying, like, you can hit rock bottom and still, like, keep going and try to reattain something that maybe you once had, maybe not fully, but, if he, like, got out of the hospital and he was, like, writing, he like, sat down or something at a typewriter and started typing away, maybe that would have been, like, I could take more away from this film, but really, it's just like this it's the story of like that about a very mythical writer that it's a very big stereotype where he just drinks himself to death and he dies. And it's like, what can I take away from that? But probably not much. All right. Well, let's get to our final ratings. And if you haven't listened to our podcast before, we give ratings an A plus 24 through an F minus 24. We give all the way. We even give E's too, which Kevin refuses to give E's, but we do
true.
that.
That's true. I never will.
How about Kevin? How about you go first?
Yeah, sounds good. So, I don't even know where to go. I'm going to touch on the two things that we really didn't touch on too much in the film, which would have been soundtrack and cinematography quick before I jump into it. I did enjoy some of the original pieces in the soundtrack. I did think that the way that they sound edited and had some really triumphant moments and some depressing moments. I think the sound aided the film for the most part, and it made it more enjoyable than the writing or the directing would have otherwise made it. I think that even something as simple as like the noises of the wind in some ambient places and some things that really just kind of highlighted the way you're supposed to feel was really great. I enjoyed that part. In the cinematography, I did think it was a pretty movie. It was shot well. It didn't have any real comments from a negative perspective from that. But where those things were high flyers, the things that really were not great, we've kind of touched on a lot, which is the character development. For me, the timeline wasn't my favorite thing in the world. There was definitely some cool elements, but it definitely wasn't exactly what I was looking for in the film. The 2 hour runtime. I know we're kind of been trained to enjoy these 90-minute films. Knowing that it was 2 hours kind of had me dragging a little bit through the middle, and I was hoping for a little bit more substance from our characters to kind of move those pieces. I already touched on it, that the costuming was terrible, especially with the beard, and it really took me out of that third scene completely. I know that's super nitpicky, but it just felt As far as recommendations, I think it's one of those, again, where if you're on this completionist trail, you probably should watch it, right? It was interesting that the critics have given it basically 11% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience is like a 77%. So
Yep.
Clearly the critics have ripped it a new one a little bit more than the audience. And maybe because A24's mystique has kind of grown since this movie came out. And so a lot of the reviews are from people in the late 2000s as A24 becomes a more household name. And maybe that does get it some forgiveness, but it doesn't give it any forgiveness from this film reviewer. So at the end of the day, I am not going to recommend it for my friends and my family. It was a hard film to digest because it just made me feel bad at the end without anything really redeeming. It just ended, it rolled credits, and I was like, great, cool, over. Let's move on to the next thing. And I didn't even give it that much thought after the fact, which I hate in the sense that A24 films have famously, at least the best ones, have made me go, what the hell was that? And I really want to think about it and watch it and do it all over again. And this was not one of those. So for all those reasons and more, it's just going to get a flat C24 for me. Not great, not awful, just is. So C24.
All right, and yeah, another interesting thing, IMDb users have given it a 6.8 out of 10, and in comparison, they gave The Witch a 7 out of 10. So according to IMDb, this film is only 0.2 less points as good as The Witch.
It's such a
Which
different
is
movie,
insane.
though.
Totally not even.
Yep.
Yeah, right. That's even hard to compare the two. But
It's
either
hard
way,
to compare,
no,
but
yeah.
IMDb does it. So
Yeah, there's just too many suburban moms watching this movie and not enough watching The Witch, you know?
I feel like this is a film for young men, actually.
Wow, you
young
know.
men of a certain type.
Suburban men.
Yeah.
What
those
a-
Writers.
suburban
Yeah.
What a
men.
tragedy. A suburban one, actually.
Mm.
All right, for that pun, Kelly, you have to go next.
That wasn't a pun. It's not a pun. Anyways,
I think that's a pun.
I will say
Semantics.
I liked this movie watching it more than I thought I was going to. Every time we start with something, that's going to be a high school tale. High school stories, there's just like two roads they go down for me, and most of them go down the road, for lack of a better term. So as soon as this started, I was like, oh, it's going to be a drag. And it wasn't a drag. It was actually a really enjoyable watch. I feel like the time spent watching it went by really fast. And the strongest parts of this movie is, I think, the editing and the timeline, the way that works, was a really good example of how to keep three storylines intertwined, carrying us forward, saving all these twists till the end, and surprising me with all of them, with the author reveal, with the blaming himself for killing the guy reveal, both of those, and the burning of the video, all of that, I thought was really powerful stuff, and it made it worth watching it to the end. So I enjoyed all that. I also like some of the themes and emotions that are really present throughout this movie, and the things that the consequences of them. So I like any movie that kind of touches on guilt, shame, regret, It's weird to admit that this is the kind of things I like to watch, but it is. I also like anything that has something to say about kind of like the crisis of fame and what it means to be famous and how that looks and how it changes a person. And I think that this movie does a good job of that. I like anything that kind of affects the culture of the movie around it because it feels kind of meta. So I appreciate all of these themes that are being touched on. I thought that Sidney himself was a pretty good character, if stereotypical at points. So I cared about him, and you guys know that that's important for me, make me care about these characters. I almost feel like as a series, this might be an more interesting story, or like Eric said and other podcasters have said, it'd be a good book. It's an interesting world to play in, and I had a good time in it. That said, it was far from like the most mind-bending, mind-boggling, amazing piece of movie watching experience I've ever had. As we've touched on, the characters are a little bit flat for me, a lot of them, and other than the twist I just named, there's other ones that are just like a little bit, yeah, okay, saw that coming, and oh, that's a easy answer for this thing. And I hated the way that Melody goes and kind of her whole character. So it's an interesting space to play in, and I think that if I was in some kind of position where I could get a script across my desk, I would say, let's make a movie out of this. I think it would be a good one. I think that would be the case. I think there was something else I was going to say, but about the soundtrack. I'm trying to disagree with you, Kevin, but because you brought it up, I forgot about it. I felt like it was like a tonal mismatch a lot of the time. It felt really optimistic in a lot of points where I don't feel like what was going on screen really matched the tone of what the music was playing in my ears. I didn't take notes while I was writing to give like an exact moment of when that was happening, but it was enough that it was like standing out to me, kind of like a wrong chord. There's other points where I felt like it matched, but it was enough that it was something that detracted from me. Okay, all of that said, I thought I was going to come in with a little extra bump on it, but after discussing it, I've kind of enjoyed it a little less. It's still going to be kind of a high rating for me. I'm giving this movie a C24.
All right, cool. I guess I'll go next. Why not? I agree with all the points about the separate timelines. I think they actually did that pretty well. I was very surprised by that, and I was surprised like the cinematography was pretty good. Like for how low of a critical rating this was, this film kind of held up with it caught my attention as a viewer. But then we get into the characters of the film, which I've been saying throughout this whole podcast that they're very stereotypical, they're one-dimensional. I feel like even Sidney, like he just plays into this mythical writer stereotype, and it feels a bit one-dimensional. I guess the things that happen to him are very unique, and I actually think those are really interesting like plot points throughout all of it, especially what happens with Brett and the whole like impetus for him to write a novel. I thought that was actually original, and I like that. But then where it goes from there, I didn't like as much. We also laughed like. So Sidney, when after he writes his book, he, like I said earlier, he didn't care about being nominated for a Pulitzer, and then got angry when he lost. But also that scene with Alexandra Margaret Qualley, he's like, "Let me buy a drink for that girl over there," and then she just comes over, talks to him for 2 seconds, and then they immediately are having sex right after. I think that these writers, they have a little trouble writing women, and that really came off in the film. I am big on characters too. That's like one of my favorite parts of film. So, yeah, I can't give it above a C. So I think I'll give it a C minus because yeah, these were very interesting concepts. They just weren't executed well. So, yeah, for sure. All right, cool. You go up next.
Yeah, I feel like I pretty much have very similar thoughts about this film as you guys. The storyline, the 3 storylines, I felt like they cut between them very well, but the storylines themselves were not great, and there's a lot of stuff in each one that I did not enjoy, and I felt like the ending and some of the key pieces, there's like key story beats that I felt like were missing from what happened to the judge? Did they just leave that behind? Why are they like? What is the real reason why they're getting divorced? How long have they been separated? Like, has it been like 2 years and the guy, had, slept with another woman, or was it like 2 weeks or not even, like, I don't know. There's certain, they do timeline stuff, but then there's timelines you don't understand either. So I felt like this movie has a really compelling story in it, but it doesn't convey well, or it's not conveyed well in this format, or at least in this iteration. Euphoria has a very similar time or like story beat, and they do it very well, but I also feel like they have a lot more to work with as a show, or as Eric alluded to, as a book, you have a lot more pages to flesh out characters and stuff like that. And I don't know, I felt like it was just fine. Like, there's nothing super bad about it, it's not very memorable. I don't think I'll ever go back and watch it. There's other movies that I think deal with certain aspects and story beats that do it better that I would recommend to any of my friends. And for like an A24 vibes, I feel like this didn't really tickle that nerve or hit me in that sweet spot. So I'd probably just pass it up unless you're on the same path as us. It's not a bad movie. So I'm giving it a C minus 24. Like, it's not bad, but it's not good. It's just kind of falls in the limbo land of, yeah, it's a movie. You're not going to have a bad time, but you're not going to have a good time. No, that's it. Honestly, I feel like this is like the worst place for a movie to fall. Right in the middle. Where it's like, man, it's so bad. You got to watch this thing. Yeah. And it's so good. You got to watch it. It's 2 hours, so it's a little too long. And it's a little too boring and a little too flat, where it's just like, it's not worth spending the time. Go watch something else. Go watch Kung Fury. That's like 45 minutes of just chaos and beautiful.
For this being a 2-hour movie, like, they didn't flesh out the characters enough, so they didn't work with the time they were given super well. But that's okay, because we will be reviewing, obviously, every A24 film from this year, and the next film we will be reviewing is The Last Movie Star, and that is starring Burt Reynolds, so that'll be an interesting one for sure.
Be the bandit.
Please find us on all social media that we're on, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and please rate us on your podcasting app if you like what we say, or if you don't like what we say, just respectfully disagree and don't rate us. So thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Next time on A24 on the Rocks, we will also be talking about the Arizona Diamondbacks and how they're going to win the World Series.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Excuse me,
good night, everybody.
What are you fucking kidding me? I will jump through this computer screen.
Guys, we really do need to talk about how Max Verstappen lost the Miami Grand Prix to Lando Norris. He got his first victory.
Lando Norris.
Let's go,
That's
McLaren.
awesome. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I like Lando. He's good people.
Yeah.
He's not a Star Wars character.
I mean, I don't like Lando. I think he's kind of a little childish, but at least Max Verstappen didn't win. But
That's the most important part.
Yeah.
How many different types of Spam do you have in your fridge right now, Cole?
First off, you don't store Spam in a fridge, so nice trick question. And I have five.
In your cupboard.
I have 5.
It's
Well, I
perishable.
thought you'd open up, try one, and then put it in the fridge, and then
Well,
you would try
yeah.
all 35 of them.
No. So I have bacon, maple, hickory. I found hickory, standard, and jalapeno. I bought another
How do you decide?
jalapeno. So
I mean, how?
my,
That's a lot of Spam.
yeah, I'm gonna do some.
Involuntary shiver I just had.
I
Spam
figured,
and eggs.
I figured
That's the best thing.
I'd save it for when you guys come visit. But no, I think the
Here's vegan
bacon
Spam.
one is gonna be the one I'm gonna break open next. So.